To be sorry for my pronounce, but I'm Portuguese, and this is the first time that I speak in English in public. But the internationalism asked for this. We convey the fraternal greetings of the Portuguese Communist Party to the participants of this rally. We express all our solidarity with the struggles in defense of the interests and aspirations of the workers and the popular masses in our different countries. This rally is taking place at a moment in which the international and European developments fully confirm the deepening structural crisis of capitalism. The even more profound economical and financial crisis that affects Europe and the world, being at its roots a crisis over the production, a crisis of overproduction and overaccumulation of capital, is one of the biggest expressions of this deepening structural crisis, demonstrating the historical limits of capitalism as well as the timeliness and need for the alternative of socialism. It is in this context that imperialism conducts an extremely violent offensive against the social, labor and democratic rights, concentrating and centralizing capital, hijacking the sovereignty of the countries and the peoples, destroying productive forces and capital, and colonizing the economies of the dependent countries. The peoples around the world are confronted with a very dangerous strategy of imperialism, of using its military power to counter the relative economic decline of the main imperialist powers, such as the US. The main imperialist actors and structures, like US, European Union and NATO, are conducting an aggressive offensive as the situation in Syria, Libya, Mali and Sahel region, Afghanistan, South Pacific and Korean Peninsula demonstrates. As in Latin America, where new attempts to counter the democratic and progressist process are being developed, as showed by the recent developments in Venezuela or by the firm intention of Colombia to join NATO. The world is involved in a very important and complex process of realignment of forces on the international arena of yet an undefined result, in which the people struggle against imperialism, for deep anti-imperialist transformations and for socialism, and the rule of the countries that choose the path of national independence and social transformation are two of the main decisive factors to determine the result of this process. In Europe, big capital is imposing historical regressions in social rights and in living and working conditions. The European Union confirms itself as an integration process of imperialist nature, serving the interests of the big capital against workers and people's interests, attacking democracy and national sovereignty. The main capitalist powers and structures of the European Union react to the deepening economic and social crisis by strengthening the three pillars of EU: neoliberalism, federalism and militarism, aiming a new leap in the direction of building a federal imperialist power controlled by the monopolies and by the main imperialist powers in Europe. The crisis in EU and its reaction shows that the crisis is also a profound crisis of the EU, demonstrating that the European Union is not reformable and must be defeated. Dear comrades, the Portuguese people is confronted with a brutal assault against its social, labor and political rights, and the country is involved in a very deep social and economic crisis that in recent times evolved also to a political crisis, as the government, with the support of the President of the Republic, remains in power despite the failure of its policy and despite being more and more political and social isolated. The situation in our country, the ongoing destruction and colonization of our economy and productive structures, the recession and embed spiral in which the country is involved, is the result of the pact of aggression imposed by the EU, IMF and ECB, as we call Troika, and is a corollary of the more than 35 years of policies dismantling the rights and conquests won with the Carnation Revolution of April of 1974, carried out by the Social Democracy of the Socialist Party, PS, and the right conservative and liberal parties, Social Democratic Party, PSD, and CDS-PP. In the last 2 years, almost 500,000 people have lost their jobs, and there are now over 1.5 million unemployed. The real wages dropped almost 10%. Over 250,000 Portuguese people, most of them young, have been forced to immigrate. Public debt has risen by 48 billion euros in this period and now stands at a record of 123% of the gross domestic product. Now, the PSD-CDS cabinet announced new and devastating cuts to health system, to social security and education, as new wage cuts and pensions appropriation. This is the outcome of the Grecian Pact and of policies that were designed to serve capitalist accumulation and monopolies, to increase the exploitation of workers, to destroy economic and social rights, and are pushing Portugal toward poverty, decline and growing dependence. The PCP denounces the stance of PS, the Socialist Party, which confirms that they continue tied to the subordination strategy that big capital and the European Union wants to impose on Portugal. It is not just Portugal's future that is under threat, it is a democratic and constitutional regime that is at stake. The core task for all Democrats and patriots are dismiss the cabinet, reject the Grecian Pact and defeat right-wing policies. Everyone must choose between accepting to have a subjugated and occupied country or, on the contrary, asserting the free and sovereign Portugal that all patriots long for. The crucial choice that confronts workers, all patriots and the people, is that of freeing Portugal from this road to submission and of asserting our inalienable right to have a developed, independent and sovereign Portugal. This involves rejecting current monetary policy and the use of the single currency. This involves pursuing the goal of making a break with European Union policies and guidelines on fiscal, monetary and economic policies that seek to perpetuate exploitation, retrogression, decline and dependence into the future behind the assistance programs and the Troika, with which they are associated. It is a national imperative to bring to life patriotic and left-wing policies with a cabinet to implement them. As the 19th PCP Congress defined, these policies should be capable of liberating Portugal for dependence and submission, recovering for Portugal what belongs to Portugal, its resources, its strategic economic branches and enterprises, its rights to economic development and growth, and also give workers and people back their rights, salaries and incomes. These policies should be based on 6 essential foundations: rejecting the Grecian Pact and renegotiation the debt, its amount, interest rates, repayment terms and conditions, supporting and improving domestic production, recovering the financial sector and other strategic enterprise and sectors back to state ownership, effective enhancement of salaries and pensions and return of stolen benefits and social rights, opting for a fiscal policy that opposes excessive spending and luxury spending and is based on a tax policy that raises taxes on big capital and relieve workers and small and medium business. A policy of support for and restatement of public service as health, education and social security, and undertaking a sovereign policy and asserting the primacy of national interests in all relations in the European Union, diversifying Portugal's foreign economic relations and adopting measures to prepare the country to exit the euro as a result either of a decision by the Portuguese people or of developments in the European Union crisis. The Portuguese workers have responded with their struggle, with general strikes, demonstrations and numerous national, local and sectoral struggles in which the great broad-based class trade union central, CGTP-IN, has played a prominent role. Day by day, broad strata of the people are joining the struggle. Confronted with the intention of the government and of the President of the Republic to maintain and reinforce the measures against the workers and the people, the CGTP-IN called for a general strike of the Portuguese workers to be held on June 27th, under the slogans of the dismissal of the government and a new policy for the country. The PCP is totally committed to mobilizing the resistance and struggle of the workers and the people, fighting for a true patriotic and left-wing alternative for our country on the path to building an advanced democracy which can rescue the great values of April Revolution and blaze a new trail of development and social progress towards the construction of a socialist society in our country. The 19th PCP Congress revealed a party that is active, united and growing, linked with popular masses, taking part in the struggle of the workers and the people. We do not underestimate the difficulties and complexities that we face, but we are determined to ensure that unity and struggle of our people may change the balance of forces and contribute to a political about turn. Comrades, we are living at a time in which grave risks coexist with great potential. The alternative for the workers and the peoples of the world requires resistance, struggle and organization. A struggle that demands the broadest possible unity in the action of all progressive, peace-loving and anti-imperialist forces, but also strong communist parties, linked with the masses, independent from the capital, with their own organization and ideology, the Marxism-Leninism, and the greatest goal of socialism and communism.